Hello and welcome to your 8th tutorial and your last tutorial on JavaScript. Today what we'll talk about is just some extra things and some bonus things that we still haven't talked about. And so as you see, I've already created a div with the ID div, and inside of the div I have a p tag with the ID pt, and as you see the p tag is inside of our div. And using CSS, I've just given it some simple code, and if I go ahead and save and refresh, this is what we'll get. And so let's also go ahead and add in a input tag, and in our input let's give it a type, and we'll make it a range. So that's the range bar if you remember from our old lessons. And let's also give it a ID, and let's say imp1. And let's add in something called onInput. So this is the onInput attribute, and we're going to add in a function to this, which is going to be our f1 function. And so we can call this function when the range's value changes. And let's also go ahead and add in minimal and maximum to our range. So the minimum will be 0, and our maximum will be, let's say, 6. And let's close this, and let's go ahead and save and refresh. And as you see, my input is now in my div, and I have this range going up to 6, so from 0 to 6. And let's also put it outside of the div, save, refresh, just like this. Our input is right here. And to continue, let's go ahead and write in our JavaScript code, and let me just get rid of these extra spaces like this. And so in our JavaScript code, what I'm going to write first of all is a variable. So it's going to be variable imp1, just like our input, and we're going to just write imp.value, so the input's value. And let's also add in our f1 function to this, so f1 like this. And just to see it on our web page, what I'm going to write is console.log, just like we do, and just text. And if I save this, refresh, and if I go to inspect and console, let me make it a little bit smaller. And so the reason that we get an error is because we've made a mistake right here. So the imp is our input 1, so this. And now if I save and refresh, and as we see with every movement of our range bar, we're going to see the difference right here, as you see, just like this. And to continue, what we're going to do is, instead of text, let's just go ahead and write imp, so our input. And so with this in console, we'll get our range value displayed. And if I save this and refresh, you see right here that I'm getting all the values. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. And it keeps a track of all of them. And now let's just go ahead and get rid of this and continue. So to continue, let's add a starting value to our range, and let's make it a 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a value attribute, and we're just going to write 0. So if I save and refresh, you'll see that my starting value is a 0, just like it should be. And besides this, let's create a new variable, so var, and let's name it p1 for example, and let's give it some HTML code. So let's do h1, our h1 tag with hello world, and let's also close our h1 tag. And using Control D, let's go ahead and create 6 of these. And let's also change the variable keywords, so 4, 5, 6 up to 6, as that is our maximum number. And let's do the same thing with our h1 and h2 tags, etc. Make them go up to 6, just like their maximum number. So go ahead and do this. And so if I save, refresh, we won't see anything just yet. So what we're gonna do is we're going to add in our if statement. So what I can do is I can also add in semicolons, and just after I'm gonna write my if statement, and the condition is going to be if input equals 0. So if it equals 0, then what's gonna happen is in our PT, which is our p tag right here, the ID is PT, so in our p tag using inner HTML, we will get this in the P1, and what we're going to do is we're going to add another statement, which is going to be else if. So the condition of this will be if input equals a 1, what will happen, like this. And inside, what I'm going to write is the same thing, so PT using inner HTML. However, this time we're going to get P1 plus P2, so we're going to get 2 of these, and we're going to go so on to 6 digits. So let me just go ahead and paste those right here, and let's go ahead and change them. So for this one, we're going to get a plus P3, and for 3 we're going to get plus P3 plus P4, so 2 more added. And for 4 we're going to get P3 plus P4 plus P5, and let's add in another one, which is going to be 5. And for this I'm going to get a P6 as well, and let me just change these numbers around. As so to make it a little bit more understandable, we're going to number them from 1 to 6. We could do 0 to 5 as well, as the starting is 0 and 6, just like this. And let's also add in whatever happens if something goes wrong, so the opposite thing, which is going to be else. And let's just get rid of everything in the p tag, so I'll just keep it like this. And if I save this and if I refresh, now we see that if it is on 0, nothing happens. However, if we go up, we'll get 6 different sized texts which say hello world. So this is due to the h1, h2, h3, etc. tags and our variables. And so as we see, for 0 there is literally nothing. It wipes out everything because of our else statement. And let's go ahead and continue, and what we can do is we can create another input tag. And so input default is basically text, so we don't have to write that in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write ID, and the ID will be, let's say, J1. And after this, let's also add in the onChange attribute, and inside let's call the f2 function just as we have the f1 function already. And then in script, so right here, let's go ahead and type in our function f2, so let's call it like this. And inside, using console log, let's get the J1 value displayed. So this is all that we have to do. And if I save and refresh, and you see that my input box pops up, and let me open inspect like this. And if I write something like hello, and if I click somewhere else, so if I go out of the input box, you'll see that I'll get it in my console log right here. And I can write anything else, so JavaScript 8, click somewhere else, I'll get it here as well. And so to continue, what we can do is we can go ahead and create a div with the ID of, let's say, D1, and close your div. And in our F2, what we're going to write is D1.innerHTML, which will equal our J1 value. And if I save and I refresh, so this is my div, so the text, and if I just write something, I'll get it right here. So just like this. and if I click on anything else, you see that nothing happens and it just stays the same. And so we can try something else. What we can do is we can write a alert. So go ahead and type in alert and our J1 value in brackets, and if I save and refresh and I write something, and if I click somewhere else, I'm going to get my alert. However, if I click on OK and if I click somewhere else again, nothing will happen as I'm not changing it right here. However, if I do change it and if I click somewhere else, I will get my alert. So this is due to the on change attribute, which is very important. And so let's go ahead and continue, and let's bring back our D1 inner HTML dot inner HTML, which will equal J1 dot value, just like this. And let's go ahead and change on change with on key down, on key and down together. And if I save, refresh, and whatever I write here, we will immediately get it into our div. So this is something useful as well. And let's go ahead and continue, and let's go to our HTML code and write select. And so let's go ahead and give our select an ID, and let's call it S1. Close your select tag, and in our select tag we'll have our options. Option, and inside we'll write some colors. Now to start off, let's write red, magenta, purple, and let's finish off with a lime. Let's go ahead and save and refresh, and as you see, I get my choices right here, my options. And what we'll do is, to not have it look as simple as this, let's add in a onChange attribute, and we'll give it the F3 function, which we will call right here. And so go ahead and type in your function F3 like this, and inside of the brackets we're going to give it the variable checked color like this, and it will show us our S1 value, and using console log will display our checked color variable. So just go ahead and copy, paste here, and if we save, refresh, we see that it perfectly shows us whatever color that we choose. And let's go ahead and move on, and let's get rid of this console log, and what we're gonna write is document dot body dot style dot background, and we'll write our checked color right here. And if I save, refresh, and as we see, when I click on the colors, I get my colors and they work. And so as you see, the colors work perfectly fine, and the magenta looks perfect with my div, just because the color is also magenta. So this is basically the background color of my page, and yeah, let's continue. And so let's go ahead and create a div. So after our select, we can just go ahead and type in div, and let's give it the ID, let's say R1, and our problem is to get a random number on click, so we're gonna add the on click attributes, and we'll give it the F4 function, a new one, and it will say something like click me like this, and we'll close our div. And what we're going to do is we're going to make our function F4 like this, and inside of our function we're just going to get it displayed on our page using math random and console log. So type in console log and math random, and so when we write our math random, we'll give it this value as well, which will be the random value. And if I save, refresh, and if I click on the button, you'll see that we'll get a lot of random numbers, so however many times we click on them. Now our problem is to get random numbers in the 1 to 100 range. So what we have to do is we have to times it by 100. And so what we do is we do exactly that. We times it by 100. And if I save and refresh, and when I click, we see that we do actually get numbers in the 1 to 100 range. However, we still have this recurring numbers. So they're still decimals, they're not whole numbers. So what we have to do is we have to add math floor, if you remember from our old lessons. And when I add my math floor, and don't forget to close math floor as well. And if I save, refresh, and if I click on my button, on my div actually, I will get whole numbers in the range of 1 to 100. And to get double digits, what we can do is we can just type in times by 90 added by 10. And if I save and refresh, you see that we get double digit numbers. And to continue to our div, let's go ahead and add in another attribute, which is something new to us, which is called on mouse over. And let's call the F5 function. And in our F5 function, which we will write right here, so function F5, just like this. And inside, what we'll do is we'll take the variable k1, and its value will be our r1.innerHTML, which is the click me text. And we're gonna get it by console log, just like we do k1. And if I save and refresh, and what we're going to see is that after I just hover on the click me text, I'm just going to get those changes right next to it. And if we change console log with error, we'll get the same thing, just with errors, just like we would if there was an actual error. And besides this, let's say we want to take the third character of click me, which is the I. What I can do is after inner HTML, I can write something called char add, so the character, and 2, so it begins from 0, which means that C will be 0, L will be 1, I will be 2. That's why we write 2 and not 3, and so on. So it starts from 0, don't forget that. And if I go ahead and save, refresh, I will get the letter I right here. And let's talk about an element which is called slice. And if I save and refresh, you see the result. So it is everything besides the C. And what I can do is I can type 0 to 4. You see that I get everything besides the K and the me. So I just get CLIC, click. So basically what this means is that, so what will be taken is from 0 to the third characters. The fourth one won't be. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and this, so the K is the fourth one, and it just won't be selected. That's just the way it is. And so yeah, that is all that I had prepared for today. And so thank you for watching all of the JavaScript videos.